Welcome to this short video which will teach you how to properly keep score in 9-ball on APA League Night. The weekly 9-ball score sheet is what you will use to keep score of all matches played. After League Night, your score sheet will be submitted to your local APA League in whatever manner they have instructed. The score sheet will ensure that both you and your opponent's members are properly ranked. It's important that the score sheet be filled out neatly, completely, and correctly, and then signed by both team captains. Penalties will be assessed for repeated illegible, incomplete, or incorrect score sheets. You will notice that the 9-ball score sheet has information on both sides. One side contains rosters, standings, and next week's schedule. The opposite side is where you will actually keep score. On this score sheet, we see that Steve Smith, a skill level 5, and Joe Jones, a skill level 7, have been selected to play each other. Their skill levels are listed here on the score sheet. Now, let's look at how to properly fill out a score sheet. After the coin toss, it is decided which team must declare the first player. Then, place that team's number, in this case Steve's team, in the space provided. This will help you remember which team chooses first in the remaining matches. For the remaining matches, the teams will alternate who puts up the first player. Next, let's look at the player information section. To help determine which player breaks and which player racks the balls for the first game, the two players lag. To lag, each player takes a ball from the rack and places it behind the head string. The objective is to hit the ball so that it banks off of the far rail and rolls back towards the cushion closest to the players. The ball that rests closest to the cushion determines the winner of the lag. The winner breaks first and is listed at the top. In this example, Joe won the lag, so you would list Joe's team number, player number, his name, his skill level, and the points he must win, listed as ball count on the score sheet. Now do the same for Steve. To find out how many points Joe must win, refer to the chart located on the opposite side of the score sheet. Joe is a 7, so he must score 55 points in order to win. Now do the same for Steve. Steve is a 5, so he must score 38 points to win. The numbers 1 through 75 above the player information are for the player listed on top. Circle the number that corresponds with the point total required for this player to win. The numbers 1 through 75 below the player information are for the player listed on the bottom. Circle the number that corresponds with the point total required for this player to win. In this example, you would circle 55 for Joe and 38 for Steve. These numbers will be used to keep track of points as the shooter pockets balls. A player receives 1 point for every ball pocketed from 1 through 8, except for those balls pocketed when he scratches or fouls, which are marked as dead balls, and he receives 2 points for pocketing the 9-ball. Draw a line through each number or corresponding dot as the shooter pockets balls. To make the points earned visually stand out more, alternate the direction of the lines for each game. The first player to reach their circled number wins the match. Now let's look at the innings section. An inning in pool is a completed cycle that gives both players a turn at the table. The player who won the lag, in this case Joe, is listed first and represents the top half of the inning throughout the match. The player who lost the lag, in this case Steve, represents the bottom half of the inning throughout the match. Since Steve lost the lag, he ends each inning. An inning is not over and therefore not marked until the player who lost the lag misses or fouls. The dead ball section. Underneath the innings section is the dead ball section. A dead ball is a point not credited to either player. Dead balls are any balls made while scratching or fouling, and balls left on the table when the 9 ball is made early, or when a player reaches their designated ball count to win the match. In the example shown here, there are 3 balls left on the table. However, one of them is the 9 ball, which is worth 2 points, and therefore equivalent to 2 dead balls. Dead balls should be accounted for on the score sheet to avoid confusion. Draw a hash mark for each dead ball during the game. Then total and circle the number at the end of the game to make it easier to keep a running total. The score section. The score sheet also has a score section for each player. It is above the innings section for the player who won the lag, and below the dead ball section for the player who lost the lag. At the end of each game, when the 9 ball is legally pocketed or the shooting player reaches their designated ball count, the scorekeeper should record the points each player ended with in the appropriate score section. 10 points should be accounted for in each game, taking any dead balls into consideration. The score, innings, and dead balls for each game should be separated by a perpendicular line drawn after each game ends. Gameplay will bring about various other scenarios that need to be declared on the score sheet as well. If a player pockets the 9 ball when breaking the rack of balls at the beginning of a game, it is known as a 9 on the snap. Write 9S in the innings section for that game. If a player breaks the balls and then legally pockets all of the balls in succession, this is known as a break and run. Write BR in the innings section for that game. At the end of the match, total the number of 9 balls pocketed on the break and the number of break and runs and write it in the appropriate block. Another scenario that happens frequently and needs to be written on the score sheet is when a player calls for a coaching timeout. When a team takes a timeout, simply mark a T in the score section for the appropriate player. The defensive shots block. Intentionally missed shots are indicated in the defensive shots block. A defensive shot should be marked for a player who has no intention of actually pocketing their ball on any given shot. Intentionally missed shots fall into 2 basic categories. The first category is safeties. Safeties are perfectly ethical, but are intentional misses nevertheless. The second category is intentionally missed shots for the purpose of manipulating one's handicap, also referred to as sandbagging. By carefully marking intentionally missed shots, you are not only keeping score properly, you are also helping to ensure the accuracy of the skill levels of the other players in your division. Note, the marking of a defensive shot does not affect the marking of the inning. In other words, the inning is marked and so is the defensive shot, if appropriate. Accurate and conscientious scorekeeping is the team captain's greatest contribution to the smooth operation of the equalizer handicap system and the prevention of sandbagging. The equalizer will work perfectly if every team keeps score properly. Anytime a player does not attempt to pocket one of his object balls, it should be marked in the player's defensive shots block. The only way a team can get away with manipulating the equalizer handicap system is if you let them. To help you better understand, the following is an example of a match where 3 games have been completed. In the first game, Joe breaks but doesn't make any balls. Steve makes 1 ball but misses his second shot, ending the inning. You would now mark 1 inning. Joe then pockets balls 2 through 9 in order. Remember, even though the game is over, a second inning is not marked because the bottom player, in this case Steve, did not complete a second turn at the table. Joe scored 9 points, 7 points for balls 2 through 8, and 2 points for the 9 ball. Steve scored 1 point, 1 point for 1 ball. There were 0 dead balls, and there was 1 inning. 9 points for Joe, plus 1 point for Steve, plus 0 dead balls equals 10 total points. Remember, 10 points should be accounted for in each game. In the second game, Joe breaks again, and this time he makes the 9 ball, as well as 1 other ball. There are 7 balls left on the table, which will be marked as dead balls on the score sheet. Joe receives 3 points, making his total 12. Steve receives 0 points, keeping his total at 1. There are 0 innings marked since it is still Joe's shot. 12 points for Joe, 1 point for Steve, and 7 dead balls equals 20 total points, 10 points for each game. In the third game, Joe breaks again and makes 1 ball, then plays a defensive shot, passing the turn to Steve. Steve then plays a defensive shot, passing the turn back to Joe and ending the inning. Joe makes 1 ball and then misses, passing the turn back to Steve. Steve pockets 2 balls and then misses, ending another inning. Joe plays another defensive shot. Steve pockets 2 more balls and then scratches while pocketing the next ball, creating a dead ball and ending another inning. Joe takes ball in hand and runs the rest of the table. In this game, Joe scored 5 points, making his total 17. He also had 2 defensive shots. Steve scored 4 points, making his total 5. He had 1 defensive shot. There was 1 dead ball, making the dead ball total 8. 17 points for Joe, plus 5 points for Steve, plus 8 dead balls equals 30 points total, 10 points for each of the first 3 games. The total innings block. At the end of the match, add up all of the innings for the entire match and enter the total in the total innings block shown here. The defensive shots block. Next, add up all of the defensive shots for the entire match. Enter the total and circle it in the defensive shots block shown here. The total points block. At the end of the match, add up the total points scored by each player and enter the total in the total points block. The match points earned block. In each match, the players will split 20 points. How those 20 points are split is determined by how well the losing player performed. Refer to the chart on the opposite side of the score sheet. In our example, Steve's the losing player. He is a skill level 5 and had 25 points. Therefore, the match points earned by Steve is 5 and Joe gets 15. The least a winner can receive is 12 points. And the most a winner can receive is 20 points. Now, enter the total in the match points earned block shown here. At the end of the team match, each team's points need to be added together and the total recorded on the total line at the bottom of the score sheet. Each individual match, unless forfeited, is worth 20 points, and a team match is worth 100 points. So the points earned by both teams should add up to 100 points when all 5 matches are played. You will also need to fill in the team number after the team captain's signature line. Then sign both score sheets. Now let's take a look at the fees section. Team captain should complete the financial section located on the opposite side of the score sheet shown here. Make sure you always itemize the money which is placed in the envelope with the score sheet. It is very important to list the annual membership dues with the names of the members who are paying. The table size section. Finally, be sure to check the box indicating which size table the match was played on. Your local league management processes the score sheets you submit. You improve the league and your chances of winning by playing by the rules and the spirit of the rules, and by keeping score according to the book. Your cooperation will be appreciated by your teammates, your fellow members, your local league management, and the APA.